forever, over and over again. I hear your voice in my head. Let your light shine, let your light shine for all to see. Start a fire in my soul, fan the flame and make it grow. So there's no doubt or denying, let it burn so brightly that everyone around can see that it's you that we need. Start a fire in me. You only need a spark to start a whole blaze. It only takes a little faith. Let it start right here in new life. So these old walls will never be the same. Over and over again, I hear your voice in my head. They need to know, I need to go. Spirit, won't you fall on my heart now? Start a fire in my soul, fan the flame and make it grow. So there's no doubt or denying, let it burn so brightly that everyone around can see that it's you that we need. Start a fire in me. You are the fire, you are the flame, you are the light on the darkest day. We have a hope, we make a name, carry the news that you have come to save. Only you can save. Start a fire in my soul, fan the flame and make it grow. So there's no doubt or denying, let it burn so brightly that everyone around can see that it's you that we need. Start a fire in my soul, fan the flame and make it grow. So there's no doubt or denying, let it burn so brightly that everyone around can see that it's you that we need. Start a fire in me. You are the fire, you are the flame, you are the light on the darkest day. Start a fire in me. Amen. Amen. I hear the Savior say, thy strength indeed is small. Child of weakness, watch and pray. Find in me thine all in all. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. Lord, now indeed I find thy power and thine alone can change the leper's spots and melt the heart of stone. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. And when before the throne I stand in wake of thee, Jesus died my soul to save, my lips shall still repeat. Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow. He washed it white as snow. crimson stain, he washed in white as snow.
Preach a message, and I try to look at everybody, try to make eye contact over here and over here and over there, wherever. And you've seen it before, because I'm not perfect. If you accidentally focus on one person and just like keep staring at them, how uncomfortable does that make you? It's different, right? There's speaking to the crowd, and then there's staring at one person and just focusing on one person. It does make a difference. How would you like if you were in a stadium of 2,000 and somebody was speaking and they're on stage and it was real passionate and real engaging and they said your name every 30 seconds and looked straight at you? How would you feel? It makes a difference. It makes a big difference. That sets our series up, and I want you to remember that power. For the next month, I want you to remember the power of just focusing on one person. There's a neat story from this book. It's called One at a Time. This is what our series is going to be, one at a time. And I can't tell it like he can, so I'm going to read it to you, this little story. How many people remember several years ago there was a giant earthquake in Haiti? Do you remember when that happened in the news? The story happens around that time. In 2010, my family spent a month in the Dominican Republic to do mission work with some friends who were to serve there. The second day we were there, I was sleeping in a bunk bed and was awakened by shaking. Immediately, I knew it was an earthquake, but I didn't know how far away the epicenter was or how devastating it would be. I soon learned a massive earthquake had struck Haiti on the other side of the island. If you don't know, there's a big island, and Haiti's on one side, and the Dominican Republic's on the other side. I'm sorry if you're looking at it this way. Haiti's over here, and the Dominican Republic's over here, and there's kind of mountains down through the middle. So they were on a trip in the Dominican Republic, and then an earthquake struck Haiti. You may remember seeing the catastrophic images on the news. 7.0 magnitude, 250,000 lives lost. More than 300,000 people injured, and 5 million people displaced. I didn't know it when I sat up in bed, but in that moment, tens of thousands of children became orphans. Tens of thousands of children became orphans. That earthquake radically changed the plans for our family that we had and how we would spend the next few months. For more than a year, we've been preparing for this mission trip to the Dominican Republic. All those plans quickly changed. I found myself on a tiny plane filled with emergency supplies, crossing over the mountains, and landing on a tiny airstrip in a small Haitian town called Jacmel. It's hard to describe how different the devastation feels when you're actually there. A few minutes after we had left the airport, I noticed an overwhelming stench in the air. I asked the Haitian pastor I was with what I was smelling, and he answered with one word: death. Building after building after building had collapsed. Rubble was everywhere. People were everywhere. Crowds of people walked around in stunned disbelief, wailing, shouting out names of loved ones they couldn't find, combing through the debris. Some were searching for something, but most were searching for someone. I walked through the streets, numb, looking around at this gigantic group of desperate human suffering. And then I saw her. Zoom lens. Picture a zoom lens. Everything else blurred out and disappeared. She was probably 2 years old, sitting all by herself, no one in her immediate area. I walked over to check on her. She saw me coming and looked up. Tears filled her eyes. She lifted her arms for me to pick her up and hold her. I scooped her up and held her, but I didn't know what to do. I was helpless. I was powerless. I was watching crowds of random people on the news from the comfort of my home. I couldn't change the channel. It's one thing to read about hundreds of thousands of people who have been impacted. It's another to hold one in your arms. I need to do something. I looked for parents. I asked around, but no one seemed to know where they were. I need to do something. There were people in makeshift tents along the side of the road. I took the girl over to them, but they were preoccupied with their own problems. I need to do something. Finally, I found a girl who was maybe 9 years old, who seemed to know the little one. And she was willing to take care of her. So I left her there with a 9-year-old. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. I don't know if you can imagine anything like that. I can't. I do know this. Watching on TV, I didn't have those strong feelings. Had strong feelings, but not like that. Not one-on-one with the camera zoomed on a 2-year-old with nowhere to go. Not handing the 2-year-old off to a 9-year-old that I didn't know. You see, the Bible records tons of stories it has in there. I don't know if you'd be surprised to know that Jesus only spoke to crowds about 15 times, to a big crowd. But well over 40 times, Jesus had one-on-one encounters with people. One-on-one. Just one-on-one. And that's what we're talking about with this whole series. One at a time. And the first one's called Zoom Lens. It's when there's a crowd and you're looking and it's a picture and you take your camera and you zoom in on one thing, on one person. Maybe it's because you have no choice. Maybe it's a 2-year-old sitting in the middle of the street. Maybe it's the loudest, squeakiest wheel. Maybe it's an annoying person that gets on your nerves. But something draws your attention and you zoom in on one thing, one at a time. But that's what Jesus did constantly. He focused on one person at a time. So we're going to talk about the different stories in the Bible of one-on-one, what it means, how we can do it, and everything in between. One at a time. We're going to be, the first story is in Luke chapter 8, verse 40 through 48. In your Pew Bible, in the New Testament, it's New Testament, page 59. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. Just then there came a man named Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years old, who was dying. Grabs your attention. As he went, the crowds pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. And though she had spent all she had on physicians, no one could cure her. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his clothes, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped. Then Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and press in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I noticed the power had gone out from me." When the woman saw that she could not remain hidden, she came trembling. And falling down before him, she declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." So we have this story, and when I was younger, I asked all the questions, what do you mean she was bleeding? Well, the bad part about that, it wasn't like when Johnny fell yesterday and scratched his arm and he was bleeding and it wouldn't stop bleeding. It was a woman's bleeding that wouldn't go away, which is important to note because in the Bible that meant you were unclean. No one was allowed to touch you, for they were unclean. And so they weren't allowed to touch you, and so that means generally she would probably hide and not want to make a big deal out of it. For 12 years, she was unclean. No one allowed to touch her. She wasn't allowed to touch anyone. Couldn't figure it out. It says she spent all she had on physicians to try to cure her. Well, it sounds like it's not even that. Not even just all her money. But every minute of every day became dedicated to trying to solve her problem. Because who wants to be alone and unclean where nobody can touch you for 12 years? And so
I'm sure she probably even sabotaged whatever it was, the way she could make money. What didn't matter. She focused everything on fixing this one problem. Her whole life for 12 years. I can't imagine 12 years. Not allowed to even touch her, and she couldn't touch anyone else. So that takes us to 1, zoom lens. This week we start out by these 2 things that we're going to go for the rest of the series. Zoom lens. We talked about focusing in on one person at a time. Here's this woman who was bleeding for 12 years. You see, when someone stood in front of Jesus, time stopped. Everything else in his life, all his concerns, his agenda, his goals blurred and disappeared. He was always fully present to everyone he came in contact with. This woman was hiding in the crowd, ignored by people, not allowed to be touched, and Jesus stopped because he felt like power went off from him. You know it's Jesus. You know he already knew who touched him. That wasn't the point. He could have walked away, forgot about it, let her be healed, but he stopped. He wasn't trying to embarrass her. He stopped. He focused in just on her. Zoom lens. See, God sees you, and his lens is focused on you. You have his undivided attention. Can you imagine that? You have his undivided attention. Forget the 5-year-old at home who's saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and she's on the phone and trying to cook dinner and talking to someone else. He always, even though there's billions of people in the world, has a zoom lens on you. If you want him. She was trying to hide. She wanted his power. She didn't want his attention. He put his lens on her. Zoom lens. Jesus always stops what he's doing and focuses right on you. God sees you. His lens is focused on you, and you have his undivided attention. And the other thing, too, loving people. Love people. Now, we're going to come back to this phrase every week. Loving people pretty much means meeting a need. And those needs pretty much always present themselves as interruptions to our agenda. That's not easy. Loving people pretty much means meeting a need. And those needs pretty much always present themselves as interruptions to our agenda. When you're watching the earthquake on TV, you can say you love the people on TV. But if you don't meet any of their needs, you're not loving them. And it seems like they always present themselves as an interruption to our lives. I imagine me in this situation, in this story. They're walking, he's walking with his disciples. There are crowds. It says there are crowds pressing up against him. You can't, there's people all around. Not only that, but a very important person came up, a leader, and said, "My only daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, is sick and about to die. Can you please come help her?" And he's like, "Okay." And they're going there. So either of those things for me would have made my life go, like a very, very important person. He's on the way there. That's his task. So first of all, that's my problem. I now have a task. I'm going to go help this 12-year-old girl. That sounds like a good thing. I'm focused on this task. That's all I would see. I guarantee it. I would be thinking, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? How am I going to help her? How long is it going to take to get there? Are we going to be in time? Not only that, but there's this crowd that you can't even walk. You know how I'm here and I just want to get to those doors, but it's full of people and you can't go anywhere and you're going like this. And not one person's touching you, but multiple people are touching you. Either one of those scenarios, the VIP with the 12-year-old girl who was not going to make it, or the crowd all in on me or whatever, either one of them would have my full attention and nothing else. Yet Jesus stops. He stops. He was on his way to do something. He was interrupted. He had an agenda. And he stopped. Turned his camera on her. Focused in. He was in that moment. Didn't matter what he was on his way to. Didn't matter what the circumstances were around him that might keep him from doing it. He stopped and looked at one person. in the moment. That's easy to say. You become a new parent and you're like, yeah, when my kid needs me, I'm always going to be there. I'm going to pay full attention to my kid. And then they go from 1 day old to 5 days old, and you've already lost that. You're like, oh, I got to have some time to myself. This crying needs to stop, this feeding, this diapering, this whatever needs to stop. But it says Jesus is always in the moment. If you come in front of him, he stops and looks just at you. I can't imagine. Remember that feeling of being in a crowd of 2,000 people and them saying your name and staring at you and focus? That woman didn't want that. She wasn't allowed to be touched. But he zoomed in on her and he chose to love her. Zoom lens. Love people. She was already healed, right? Did he have to stop? Jesus knew there was a much more important thing than that. The woman who wasn't allowed to touch anyone for 12 years. All of a sudden, he stopped and looked just at her. Of course, he said, your faith has made you well, go. But what he was really saying is, I see you, I love you. I see you, I love you. We are in this moment. It's only about you right now. Only you. I can't imagine, especially with all those crowds. I know some of you, just the crowd alone would make you pull your hair out and go crawl in a hole, or maybe just go on the floor and let people walk over you. But he stopped in the middle of it and said, I see you and I love you. It's what he says to us every day. So to finish today, we're going to talk about these two things that we're going to talk about every week. One at a time begins when you see someone, zoom lens, and do something. Love people. See someone and do something. It's two things, right? One at a time can't happen unless you have those things. First of all, sometimes we don't even see. And sometimes when we do see, we don't do anything. But one at a time starts when you see someone and do something. So every week we're going to talk about seeing someone and doing something. Most of us have had a few of these I need to do something moments, right? I don't know if it was like the guy in the story, but we've had them. We've seen them. After enough of those moments where we say, I need to do something, and we feel like we should do something, but we're not sure what to do, after enough of those moments, we learn to silence that voice. Because we get tired of, oh, I feel like I should do something, but I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure. And you do that enough times, and then you start to not see anyone. Because you don't want that feeling. Oh, I know I should do something, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. So we're just going to ignore it right now. And I need to do something gets replaced with somebody should do something. It's not that we want it that way. We want to help. But that's what it turns into. We don't have a choice. If we keep ignoring the voice, if we keep seeing something and then not doing something, sooner or later, we don't even see anything anymore. So don't let that happen to you. Don't let that happen to us. When you see someone, do something. Not sure what to do? Do something. Pray. Ask God what to do. Then do your best. It won't be perfect, but you can trust God with the results. Do you think that guy knew what to do when he picked up a 2-year-old in a foreign country? There's no one around. And he even said, I don't know if I did the right thing. I handed her to a 9-year-old in the country. It sounds crazy, but he did something. He didn't ignore the voice. He didn't say, oh, there's a 2-year-old on the ground going like this. I'm not equipped for that. And walk the other way. Now, it would be hard to do for anyone. I know we can all say, I wouldn't know what to do, but I guarantee almost everyone would pick up the child. Because it's that obvious. Now, most of life isn't that obvious. We see someone and it's not a 2-year-old that doesn't have anybody. It's something else, but they have a real need. We're still supposed to see them and do something. It may not be that drastic, but we still should, because people want to be seen. They want us to do something. So do something and then trust God with the results. Just don't ignore it so that we stop seeing it. What do you see is my question. As you walk around every day, what do you see? Here's the problem. You probably see what you're looking for, right? You're looking for certain things when you leave the house. You're looking for certain things in your house. You probably see what you're looking for, what you've trained your eyes to look for, or what you've been told to look for. Here's the thing, I bet you'd be stunned every day from your daily things at what you don't see that's right in front of you. I bet you'd be stunned at how much difference you could make if you only saw the people in front of you, me included. Look around. Crowd, no crowd, grocery store, gas station, school. Look around. See what's in front of you. Change what you're looking for. Look for something to see. Look for someone to help. See something on purpose, not just your agenda and what you want to see. If you only have an agenda and you want to get that done, chances are that's all you're going to see for the day. And I'm the most guilty of this. I wake up and I know what I have to get done. I know how many hours there are in a day. I know how many people are in our house. I know what we have to do. And I focus on that. And then I get done with all of it. I'm like, ooh, I feel pretty good. I got it all done. But I guarantee you I miss a lot when I do that. Jesus always stopped and zoomed in on one person at a time.
I've always aimed higher, don't let me off the hook. We wrote a chapter, haven't finished the book. The high road's the hard one, but doesn't it